Okay, everybody. So we are in the next part of our series of the Aggadah, the mystical legends of the Talmud. Okay, so here we go. Today's topic is going to be about personal growth. Now, what is growth? What is growth? People want to grow, but what does it mean to grow? We don't want to grow this way. To grow this way. What is the definition of growth? Everyone talks about it, but what does it mean? So I want to use actually the physical definition of it and expand it based on a verse in the book of Job, which says, "Mibsori echse Eloka," which means from my flesh I will experience godliness. And what that means in our case is that I can give you an example of things that you see in the physical world that are built in a way that parallels the spiritual realm. So the definition of growth I want to use tonight, if we accept it, is the idea of expanding your boundaries. Okay, when a person grows physically, there's a certain limitation, and they grow, they expand their boundaries. So too in the spiritual sense, that when you grow, you take the limitations that you have and you expand your boundaries. That's what our topic is tonight. So I want to ask you all the question of what is the most important quality you need to grow? So people have a lot of ideas, humility, honesty, integrity, determination. They're all true. But I want to tell you a different explanation. It's going to sound completely bizarre. The thing you need to grow more than anything else in the world is hiddenness. That's right, that's what I said. Hiddenness. Let me explain. If every time a person would do something wrong, a bolt of lightning would come and strike them dead, how long would it take for everyone else not to do the same thing? Not too long, right? Every time you ate something unhealthy, a person would drop dead on the spot. Nobody would eat it anymore. So what happens is that your ability to decide what you want to do and thereby be the one who makes the decisions in a free manner, that's determined by the concept of hiddenness. As a matter of fact, the word in Hebrew for the world is called olam. Olam really doesn't mean world at all. It means hiddenness. La'alim means to conceal something. The deeper meaning of this world is that this world is built on the concept that God conceals himself, and that allows us the free will to choose how we want to act. And if you think about it, it's certainly true. Think about anything in the world, and you will realize that there's a certain amount that people could discuss and argue and debate on what something is and disagree on it till they call them crazy. So for example, let's say I take this paper clip. See this paper clip? And I say to you, what is this? So one guy says, a paper clip. All right, great. Another guy says, no, it is a cheek scratcher. All right, a little bit strange, but maybe not wrong. If someone says this is a giant Dalmatian and it's a very cute dog and it's a living, breathing dog, you'd say the person is crazy because you see it's not that. There's certain things that when you define, you can't come with an opposite understanding about them. Now take two people, put them in a room and say, do you believe that there's a God in this world? Now, one could tell you, for sure, I have no question, I'm 100% sure. And the other one could say, I'm sure there is no God. How could they both be looking at the same world and come up with completely opposite ideas, and they're both sure of their answers. And the reason is because the world is built to the perfect level of concealment. At that level, a person could see the world one way or the other way. And that's the word olam, world. It means God concealed himself, and now we choose the way we function. But imagine if there was no concealment. Imagine you were about to do something that you thought wasn't so good. Okay? You were about to go and denigrate somebody and just rip them apart and say the worst things about them. And as you're about to do it, all of a sudden you hear a voice. Don't do it! This is God speaking. Alright, well, I can't do it. I can't do it. And that's the deeper meaning in Hebrew. The word for yira, awe, is the same word as ro'ez, to see. Because if you saw the truth clearly, you would have complete awe. Because it would be so apparent to you that you could not have the option of not doing something that was good. Okay? You know, we think about it a lot. People talk about, let's say, habits that people have. So let's say somebody decides that they think smoking is bad for you, which most of the world now thinks it is. So when a person smokes a cigarette, so they decide, all right, I'm not smoking anymore. Now, what happens at night when you smoke a cigarette? If you decide it's bad for you, what happens in the mind? What happens is very simple. You go through a process where you conceal truth. So nobody goes and says, oh, this is really bad, and I'm going to do it anyway. That's not what you do. Here's what you do. You say, yeah, it's bad, but you know what? One cigarette, how bad could that be? Say one cigarette. Have one other cigarette. 2 cigarettes, 3. How bad could a few cigarettes be? So now what you do is you conceal what you know to be true, and that's how we live our lives. Therefore, the most important factor for you to grow is this concept of concealment. When it exists in the world, you are free to choose and build yourself based on your choices. If you had no concealment, you would never do anything that would be opposite from what was good, but you would be a robot too. That's the concept of the angels, the malachim. The malachim are spiritual forces that must do what they're programmed to do. They're like the laws of nature. They're spiritual laws. They don't have the free will human beings do. All right? I always tell people I had when I used to live in Israel, so I wanted my kids not to eat junk food. So I thought I was going to be really so smart, and I decided to refer to candy as junk, thinking my kids would understand the innuendo of, well, this thing is junk, but not realizing that I was living in Israel at the time, and my kids' first language was Hebrew. So they weren't so attuned to the subtleties of the English language. So they actually thought that candy was just called junk, which was strange, because when people would give them candy, they would thank them and say, thank you for the junk, which would always insult the people who gave them the candy. But anyway, what happened was we kept in our house a cabinet where the junk was kept, called the junk closet. Okay? And the rule was you couldn't get junk for no reason. There was certain special occasions you get this candy called junk. What was some of those occasions? One was the Sabbath. On Shabbat, Saturday, Shabbat, you'd be able to get candy. Now, but the kids knew the rules. You could not go into the junk closet themselves. We had to go. You'd ask for your junk, and you would get whatever, at the appropriate times, whatever candy you get. Now, one Saturday morning, I hear the kids rummaging in the junk closet. Now, I know that they know the rules. No, we can't take junk without permission. But what are they thinking to themselves? So I'm in bed, and I hear them scurrying and rummaging around, and I know what they're thinking. They're saying to themselves, you know what? It's Saturday morning. On Shabbat, our parents like to give us candy, like to give us junk. Not only that, if we wake them up now and we ask them for some junk, that would be very terrible. We'd be waking them up from their golden slumber. No, not a good idea. I think the better idea is, it's a greater mitzvah, it's a beautiful deed for us to go into, help ourselves to the junk. This is the rationalization process. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to test it. So I walk out of the bedroom, I sneak in behind them as they're in the junk closet, and all I do is I clear my throat. Go, the kids turn around, ah! Don't shoot! Now, why were they so guilty looking if they thought to themselves they were doing something acceptable? The answer is very simple. Because before I was in the room, the rationalization was easy. The hiddenness existed. Once you could see me, you could see your father. You can't rationalize. This quality of hiddenness is the key point to us, make us grow. Now, what is this quality of hiddenness called? This is what the sages called the Satan. In English, it's got weirder connotations, but it's called the idea of Satan. Now, what is the Satan? The Satan is a spiritual force that the job of this force is to conceal the truth. This force is not an independent worker. He is hired and created by the Master of all, by God, to do a task. As spiritual forces have their goals, have their jobs, the laws of nature have their jobs, this is one of the spiritual forces that has a job. The job is to conceal the truth. Actually, as a matter of fact, the deeper name is Samkel, which means concealment. The actual word means, and the other name of this force is called concealment. And therefore, the job of this force is to conceal the truth. The Zohar, the seminal work on Kabbalah, gives a very important analogy. It says it's like an example of a king who has a son, and he's trained his son in how to act in a moral way. And one day he wants to test the son, so he hires a woman of the evening, a prostitute. He hires a woman who's not so appropriate, and he pays her to try to seduce the son. Now, the woman is working for the king. When she's trying to seduce the son, she actually wants the son to say no, but she's got to do her job. She's employed by the king. Okay? That is this force that we talk about, that's job is to create concealment in the world. Now, it has numerous names. The Talmud says it's also called the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death. It's also called what's known as the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is the force that every human being has inside of them. Inside of us, we have part of us that wants us to do good, part of us puts us to negativity, these different aspects of ourselves. The force of Yetzer Hara that creates and forms and pushes towards negativity is none other than that same concept. Why? Because it's all born, the mystics say, out of God concealing himself, the concept of concealment, and then creating within that vacuum the forces that will run and that will be the expression of this concealment. On a global level, it's called Satan. It's called the force of the Satan. On one level, the angel of death. On a personal level, it's called the Yetzer Hara. Your own personal forces of concealment that run in your system. So if right now a person wants to go and says, should I smoke this cigarette? So there's a concealment and a process that you work through how you fool yourself. That's your personal power of concealment. That's the Satan. And yourself, it's called Yetzer Hara, the force of negativity and concealment. Now, what I want to do with you today is a very fascinating and amazing mystical teaching. Okay? This teaching talks about what is the future of this force called the Yetzer Hara, the force of negativity that happens to individuals. So we're going to now read the Aggadah in the Talmud Sukkah, which tells us what the future will be of this force in the end of history. Okay, so here it goes. The Talmud says, "And the land shall mourn." This is a verse in the book of Zechariah. The Talmud asks, what is the cause of this mourning? Rabbi Dosan and the rabbis differ on the point. One explains the cause of the slaying of the Mashiach, the son of Joseph. That we're going to leave for now. A fascinating topic about the descendant of the tribe of Yosef who fights the wars and leads into the time of the Mashiach, time of the Messiah. That's a sort of secondary point here. I'm not going to get into that one today, but that is one of the explanations of why everyone's crying, because there was a great religious leader who was going to be killed in the wars that immediately precede the coming of the Mashiach, coming of the Messiah. The other commentary explains the cause is the slaughtering of the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara. So the reason why everyone's crying is because this power of negativity that lives inside of us is going to be killed. Says the Talmud, and according to him explains the cause to be the slaughtering of the evil inclination. Is this an occasion for mourning? Is not rather an occasion for rejoicing. Why then should they weep? Why is everyone crying about the death of this force if the force is so bad? The Talmud says the explanation is as Rabbi Jude expounded. In the time to come, the Holy and Blessed be He will bring the evil inclination and slaughter in the presence of the righteous and the wicked. So in the future, this is talking about the end of time. Okay, this is talking about before we come into a utopian reality of clarity called Messianic times of Mashiach. So God will bring this force called the evil inclination, and it will slaughter it in the presence of the righteous and the wicked. To the righteous, it will have the appearance of a towering mountain, and to the wicked, it will have the appearance of a thin hair. That's strange. So the righteous see it as a giant mountain, but the wicked see it as a thin hair, this force of negativity. Says the Talmud further on, it says, "But the former and the latter will weep." Both the righteous and the wicked will weep. The righteous will weep, saying, "How were we able to have accomplished a towering mountain?" The wicked also will weep, saying, "How is it that we were unable to conquer this thin hair?" And the Holy One, blessed be He, will also marvel together with the righteous, as it said, "And thus saith the Lord of hosts, if it be amazing in the eyes of the remnants of this people in those days, it shall also be amazing and wondrous, unbelievable," says the verse, "in my eyes." That is the mystical teaching of the Talmud. Let's review what we saw. It says in the future God will bring this force of negativity and will slaughter it. Now He slaughters in front of both the righteous and the wicked. They both cry. The righteous say, "Wow, look at that giant mountain. How are we successful overcoming it?" The wicked cry, say, "Look at that thin hair. How can we not overcome it?" Then God says, "Wow, if the righteous can't believe it's amazing to them, it's also amazing to me." That's the essence of the teaching. Now, if you think about it, there are a lot of problems with this. Let's go for the jugular. Remember, if you've got to think in questions here, because that's the way we uncover this, is start thinking about the questions. So the first question that I would ask, and I'm sure you would out there too, is, I don't understand. If this is the force of negativity that's inside a person, why do the righteous people see it as a giant mountain and the negative people see it as a thin hair? First, I would think it's the same thing for both of them. But if you want to tell me it's not the same thing, this is backwards. The righteous people who are doing all these good things, shouldn't they be seeing it as a thin hair? Because they don't have that much negativity in them. Look how good they are. They do good things. Wouldn't the evil people who are pushed to always do negative things, wouldn't they see it as a giant mountain? But yet, the text says the opposite. The righteous see it as a giant mountain. And they say, I can't believe we did it. The evil, who you think their evil inclination will be stronger, they go and they cry and say, look at this thin hair. Have we not overcome it? This is backwards. That's a giant problem. Now, furthermore, what's also strange about this is that why are the righteous crying then? Because they're crying, I didn't say the wicked, they're saying, okay, how do we not overcome this thin hair? It was so easy, we should have done it, and they're crying because they feel bad. But the righteous are crying, saying, wow, how were we successful in overcoming this? So why are they crying? If they were successful, they feel good about it, why are they crying? And don't say they're crying from happiness, because the text said they were mourning. The verse in Zechariah says that people are all mourning. So they're crying, oh, how do we ever do this? It's so big. But then don't cry. Be happy. Throw a party. Second question, and it's also a giant question. The third question is the way things end. It says that God says, wow, if the righteous can't believe it's amazing to them, it's amazing to me also. Ladies and gentlemen, that doesn't make any sense. Right? The definition of God is he can do everything. I mean, he's omnipotent, he's omniscient. What does this mean? As if it's saying that God said, wow, I can't believe it. Well, what do you mean you can't believe it? God knows everything. Of course I can't believe it. And then it's worse because it says, the verse seems to say that God makes a contingent on the righteous people. If they can't believe it, I can't believe it either. What does that mean? What does that mean? Of course God knows what they were going to do, what they can do. He knows everything. So this is a strangest statement. It's unbelievable. That's unbelievable to me. Very, very strange. So those are the three main questions. There's one other side question. If we have time, we'll get into it, which is the idea of slaughtering this evil inclination. It's a very weird term. Why does it kill it, beat it, or slaughtering? It's a little weird term. If we have time, then we'll get into that. But let's leave that. That's maybe another class. But maybe we'll discuss it. But it is an interesting thing to note. Okay, let's try to understand what this means and how we make sense of this. Let's go back to our original statement. We said before, I quoted you in the beginning, the idea of growth is similar to physical growth. It's expanding your boundaries. And I quoted to you the verse in Job that says, "Mi besori echselokah," from my flesh I see godliness, meaning that the spiritual worlds are understood because you could look at the physical world. And that's a very important concept. Maybe we'll get to more Kabbalistic ideas of how the worlds are built, but they are built in the same structure. Just the physical world is a representation of the spiritual worlds, and they are all one system reflecting each other in different levels. So now let's look, according to that, about how a person grows physically. Let's say I want to go and I want to build muscle, for example. I go to the gym. Okay, I am going to start a regimen to build my biceps. Okay, day one. Here it is. I am going to pick up this. Can't even see it. This paper clip. I'm going to do 50 reps. How far will I get in building my muscle? Not too good. Okay, I got a better idea. I have a refrigerator in the other room. I'll pick that up. How's that going to work out? Not too good. This is too light. That's too heavy. So what do you have to do? You have to find the perfect weight. The perfect weight is the one where it matches the exact resistance. It's hard for me to do, but I can do it. Let's say I got 25 pounds to start with, let's say. Okay, I'm doing 25 pounds. Now I notice a fascinating thing after 2 months. What do I notice? The 25 pounds are now too light. How am I going to build muscle now? I need to increase the resistance. This is already conquered territory. This I could do. I'm not building muscle anymore because I am now used to that level. To build muscle, I have to increase the weight, thereby creating more resistance. That's the analogy in the physical world. In the spiritual world, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. The way a person grows is they make free will decisions. Every human being has their what's called their nekudas bechira, their point of free choice. And it's different for every person. If you were born to a family that taught you about right and wrong and good and evil and trained you very well, your point of choice might be over here. For you, it's not a challenge. You're not going to rob a bank, okay? Because that's already conquered territory for you. That's obvious, not at the point of your free will challenge. There's no hiddenness for you there. But let's take a person that was born to a family of robbers. Now, what happens for him is that he grew up stealing, and for him, stealing is natural. It's a living. That's what he does. Not a very good idea, but it's what he does. Now, for him, his free will point is, if I get caught in a robbery, would I ever kill someone? That he doesn't know. So what happens is, let's say he steals, and then he gets caught, and he can now shoot the owner of the house, God forbid. Let's say he decides that, no, I'm not a killer. I may be a thief, but I'm not a killer. And he doesn't kill. He does it once, twice, 3 times. He decides in himself, I will never kill. So that becomes his area where now he's past that challenge. He has his challenge of stealing, which he thinks is okay. Now let's say he runs into someone and says, hey, stealing is really bad. Imagine, think what it is. Well, if people stole from you, think what it means. So he starts thinking about it. He says, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe stealing is not so good. But he's used to stealing. He has to conquer it. Once, twice, 3 times. His friends say, come, we have an easy thing to do, an easy heist. He says, no, I'm not going to do it. When he locks that in, that's also conquered territory. That's lifting the weight. Now he grows spiritually. He keeps growing. Okay? He becomes a scholar. Okay? Now, what happens right now is somebody comes to him and says, listen, you know what? We have this law called Lashon Hara. You can't even speak poorly about someone, even if it's true. Fascinating law. If the world kept that law, we'd be in good shape. So, again, there are qualifications of that law if it's going to cause damage. That's not for discussion right now. But when he hears that, let's say he says, wow, you're right, I shouldn't do that. He conquers that too. Now, go back and imagine what happens when he was a thief. If somebody would come to him and said, you know what, there's a law, you can't speak badly about somebody. Is it crazy? I'm a thief. It's like picking a refrigerator up. There's no check, there's too much. So, every person has their point where they are growing on, their weight that they're lifting. Now, after this person becomes a scholar and a holy person, if somebody comes to him and says, the old gang says, hey, come, let's go knock off a bank. Do you think he has any challenge to do that? No. It's like, of course I'm not going to do that. I'm a righteous person. So how is he still alive? How is he still growing? And the answer is because even though the Yetzer Hara, the force of negativity, is not getting coarse and gross with him, and not base like it was in the beginning, it still needs to give him a challenge, a much more refined challenge. A challenge that he could be fooled into, and the concealment could be great. He could fool himself. It's really okay. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. A person becomes a very, very righteous person. He's not tempted to go and to steal or even to speak badly about people and to harm people. But there could be a very subtle challenge. I'll give you one example. One example is there was a case in Jerusalem once where they were having a discussion about the great sages of Israel. They were talking about, a number of years ago, a certain issue, and they were all debating it and saying their opinions. One rabbi stood up, an elderly man, and he said, listen, I want to say something here, and I want you to know that I'm too old to be saying this for my honor, so you listen to what I have to say. So one of the other rabbis said, listen, with all due respect, you're a great man, we want to hear what you have to say. But not because it's not for your honor, because now you're so old, maybe that's all you have is your honor. Now what does that mean? It means that a person now, imagine a person who's very righteous. The law is you're supposed to honor a Torah scholar. But it's a very fine line, because he has to take it as you're honoring God's Torah that he knows, not his personal self. That's a fine line. That might be the place where the Yetzer Hara fools him into saying, hey, these people are not doing what I have to say. Maybe they're going against God. Well, maybe that's true, but maybe you have a personal agenda with it. That's a very fine line. That's the trick that the Yetzer Hara could start to play with a person who becomes holier. So what do you see? As a person grows, the challenges have to get greater and greater and greater and greater, more fine and more subtle to keep him growing. The weights have to get stronger. Otherwise, he's not growing. He's not conquering those new horizons. That's what it means. The righteous see it as a giant mountain, because their whole life, since they were battling and conquering and gaining their Yetzer Hara to their, even not being aware, was getting stronger and stronger and craftier. So when they see at the end of time, they say, oh my gosh, look how this force has grown, but I conquered it. Amazing. But the negative people see it as a thin hair. What does that mean? It's an amazing thing. You know, there's a concept in the world they call a dirty old man. Yeah, no one has a dirty old man. Talmud says it's a very bad thing. It says the mind can't even handle it. What is this dirty old man? But I want to tell you something. The dirty old man was once a dirty young man. And at that point, it didn't seem as peculiar. Oh, yeah, he's just a kid, you know. What happened to the guy? The guy was a dirty young boy at 16, and he never changed. He's the same guy he was at 16 at 75. How did he not change? Because the Yetzer Hara, the force of concealment, knocked him off from day one, and he never had a battle anymore. It was a done deal. He got knocked off at day one. The weight never got higher. It was always the same weight. And that's what it means. The negative people see it as a thin hair, because they realize, wow, I really could have overcome that. It wasn't so hard. But once I got knocked off track and I didn't battle and try to control myself and master myself, make my free will decisions, I just became off base and lived my life not connected to a process of growth. And that's why they cry, saying, listen, it was a thin hair, I could have done it. What happened? What happened was they got knocked off in the first round. They never thought to get back on. That explains the difference of how they're seeing it. But it doesn't explain why the righteous are crying. The evil people say they're crying because they say, oh gosh, we could have done it. But the righteous cry, saying, oh, we did it. So why are they crying? The deeper reason is because they're crying because this is talking about at the end of time, when the forces of hiddenness, called the times of Mashiach, times that we go into a time of clarity, this time in the world is moving towards. Actually, it's before the year 6000, where the Jewish year now 5,779. It's getting soon. A time where there's clarity in the world, there's understanding in the world. The people are aware of truth of God in the world. So at that point, there's really not a free will challenge anymore, because the truth is too clear. The hiddenness is God. That's what it means. This force of negativity is slaughtered. It's removed from the world. And therefore the righteous cry, and they say, oh my gosh, we did so good, but there's now more to do. They realize that the potential for growth is now gone. And even though that's a beautiful time, an utopian time of clarity, times of Mashiach, times of the Messianic times, but it has a downside too, in the fact that the time of work and earning and hiddenness and concealment, that's lost, that's gone. And those are the tears of the righteous. And they say, oh wow, it was amazing, we did so much, but maybe we could have done more, and I don't have that anymore. That's why they cry. Now, what does it mean that God wonders and says, oh my gosh, the righteous can't believe they succeeded, I can't believe it either? We said that makes no sense. Why is God wondering? And the deeper meaning of that is as follows. Any human being that's honest with themselves and looks at their lives, they will see that they get help in their process. And this is based on the beautiful Talmudic teaching that says, if you open your heart like the eye of a needle, God will open it like a giant hall, the ulam, the hall of the temple even. What does that mean? It means a person starts a process and they want something, they feel something. God looks into our hearts, and when he sees you want something and you open your heart a little bit, he assists you, and he gives you the ability to succeed in your process. It commiserate with your actions, and you open your heart a little bit, and he helps you. So a person looks at their life, they can start to see a lot of the things that they thought to do. They got a little help. I look back at my life at numerous things that happened in my own world. And it's clear to me to see. I remember when I was finished college and I was traveling in Europe, and there was a point where I was considering going to Israel, and I had met a musician who had a yacht, and we were maybe going to go sail to South America, and I was debating what I should do, the Holy Land or cruising around the world, and I'm not sure what I would have decided. But what happened was the guy's yacht broke down and the offer was off the table. Okay. Time, I didn't know what I was looking at. Now in retrospect I say, wow, that was a real help for me. I'm not sure if I made the right decision, if I was in that situation again. So God helps you if you look at your life and you look at it honestly. You could start to see that, oh wow, this worked out. I was helped here, I was helped there. And that's what it means. God says, if you can't believe it, I can't believe it. Because the truth is that God could say, you know what, you succeeded here, righteous man, succeeded there. I helped you in this, I helped you in that. The yacht broke, this happened, all these things happened. But that's not the way the world works. God says, if you made your efforts, and you can't believe you succeeded, to me it's also wondrous, because I consider it as if you did it all. Even though I helped you and I guided, but it was appropriate because you did what you had to do. And that's the deeper meaning. That God says, yes, I helped you, but I can't believe it either. You guys were amazing. I credit you as if you did it because you did your part. I was once, when I was living in Israel for a couple of years, and I was coming back to the States, and I was taking a train down to Trenton, New Jersey to renew my license. And I sat down next to this elderly Jewish man. He starts talking to me. He says, listen, how did you grow up? And I said, I grew up in, kind of a very, I don't know how to describe it. My house was very open to what I wanted to do, how I wanted to be. And I got more involved in Judaism as I grew up and stuff. And he says to me, wow, you're amazing. How did you do that? I said, listen, I was a seeker. I was searching for truth, and that's what I was about. And he was like, wow, I'm so impressed. I don't know if I could have done that, he says to me. He was a Holocaust survivor. He said, I don't know if I had that test and I could have done anything. But I grew up, deeply entrenched in my tradition. And you were a seeker. Wow, I'm so impressed. And he was impressed. And I was getting impressed. Yeah, I remember I'm a seeker. I'm pretty impressive. And then we're talking. He says to me, tell me, where's your family from? I said, well, my parents were Holocaust survivors. My parents also, they grew up in homes in Europe and Czechoslovakia, and they were Hasidic families, and the war broke out, and my parents were taken to camps. And he looks at me and he goes, don't tell me that you were a seeker. That's not how you got deeply connected to your Judaism. That's just not true. So I'll tell you how it happened. It says, your grandparents are in the heavens screaming, what happened to my family? And that's how you got to where you are. Just destroyed me. It wasn't me that did it. It was like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he was saying it. What audacity. I thought about it and I said, you know what? He's right. I mean, I made my efforts, but how much help did I have along the way? I had a lot of help along the way. That is the deeper meaning of that God says, if you can't believe, I can't believe. I credit you. But if you look in your life, you see the assistance you get. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, this is like, if you understand this lesson that we just talked about, your whole world is different. I want you to imagine a second that you are on the way out of your house and there is a note stuck to your door. The note says, you're about to leave the house. And what's going to happen is your car is not going to start. And then you're going to get late to work. And your boss is going to yell at you. And he's going to fire you. And then when you walk out of work, a bus is going to come, hit a rainy puddle, and it's going to get all your new clothes all ruined. And this is all a test, and I want to see how you respond. Signed, God. Now, I want you to think about it. How would you feel if you saw that note and you went into the car, you put the key in, you turned it, and the car didn't start? I think you would probably take it in stride. You would say, wow, this is a test to see how I respond. This is a growth opportunity. Instead of me freaking out, if I realize that the note said this was going to happen, and it's all about how I respond to it, if you realize that, you look at your life completely differently. It's not about I'm stuck in the problem. I'm realizing that every challenge and every situation is a growth opportunity for me. If you looked at the world that way, your life would be totally different. And that is the deeper meaning of this power of growth. What happens is we all have tailor-made growth opportunities for where we are at today. What our resistance level is, what our conquered territory is. We have a test and a challenge that happens all the time. And the reason why it's happening is it is an opportunity for us to grow and to deal with that resistance, that challenge, that weight. And there's many ways you can respond to it. Sometimes, little stupid things, you go and you freak out about little things. I've seen people, it's a fascinating thing, I see people deal great with major, God forbid, catastrophes that no one should know. And then you go and you burn dinner and you flip out. What to flip out for? It's all right. Maybe it was an atonement for something else you did wrong. Maybe it was to see how you respond. There's a million different things. If you start seeing life as you're getting opportunities perfectly situated for your level, and every time you deal with them, you're expanding your boundaries, you're growing, then life's got a very, very different connotation. That is the deeper process of growth. There's hiddenness in the world. Nobody wants tests that are so hard. Maybe we'll discuss in the future how you deal with those. But start with the easy ones. Start with the things that you could start to get control of. Your normal day. And the little things that freak you out. It's not that you don't sweat the little things. You could sweat them. It's not about that. What it's about is understanding it's an opportunity for you to respond and accept and deal and relate to this in a way that now will be conquered territory for you, another building of your greatness. And as long as that resistance is there and you're alive, you can grow. You can go to the next level. And once you do, you're going to get challenged on that level, because that is how a person truly becomes a great and powerful and spiritual being. So I wish you all the ability to do that and to experience that and get there in this Yom Kippur that's coming up a couple days, to be sealed in for a beautiful year. Michael, are any questions out there? There are no questions. Should I answer the question about the slaughtering of the Yetzer Hara? What do you think, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. I left that one because it's a little bit of a different issue, but I will just as a side answer that. To the side. Why does it say the Yetzer Hara is slaughtered? Why does it say it's killed? Slaughter is a very fascinating term because it connotates ritual slaughter. Some of them, when you have an animal that you want to make it kosher, is a certain way to slaughter it. So slaughtering has two meanings. One is to kill something, to destroy it, to slaughter it. But there's also another connotation of to slaughter something means to make it kosher, make it proper, if you do it the right way. The truth is there are two parts of this concealment in a human being. One part is called Yetzer Kasani, the concealment that's based in anger and control and power. There's another part of this concealment a human being has based in desire, physical pleasure, desire. And they're two very different modes. If you notice that very often you have people who are one more than the other, right? It's like, yeah, I'm not going to get through it now, but you can think of people. I mean, there are people who are power people, and there are people who are desire people. So, what it means here is that the Yetzer Hara is slaughtered. The process of the power and control, it's called idolatry on my own God, that is removed from the world. That's killed. The Yetzer Hara, the inclination towards desire, is kosherized. That's what it means. It's ritually slaughtered. That desire doesn't disappear from the world, but desire is turned into a process to yearn for spiritual and wonderful and holy great things. So the desire is koshered, is kosherized, and made holy in the future, while the anger and power, negativity, that is killed and removed from the world. So again, we should have all of them being used properly in our development to become the great people we could be. Have a great night. Bye.